video you're about to watch is on VANS aircraft's RV6 and RV8 pre-punched empennage. As with all of our videos, they're meant for entertainment purposes only, and not to be an absolute or a how-to, but as an aid to go along with the plans and the instructions. The only difference between a 6 and an 8 empennage is the rudder, so this video will work real well for either one. We hope you enjoy the video. As always, work safely. Use all your safety equipment, your safety gear that's recommended by your tool manufacturers. So have fun, work safe, and hopefully someday we'll see you at a fly-in. We start by taking the 603, peeling all the plastic coating off of it. We found that if you leave the coating on, it protects it, but it also forms a gap between it and whatever you're affixing it to, and it could lead to a misalignment. So we like to take the plastic off using our double-edged deburring tool, run it down, deburr the edge, take a little emery cloth, polish the whole edge off. We'll then take a small file and round the corners off like this and smooth down all the ends. And what you're trying to do is two things. One, relieve stress areas, any cracks, and two, you're trying to make the piece safe to work with. You don't want a sharp edge to cut yourself on. Once that's done, you can set that aside for a second. Get your 601 skin. Now, on the skin, we've pulled the plastic back off the edge about 2 inches where the 603 is going to touch it, and left the rest inside here for right now. We've also left the rest on top for right now. We'll leave that there as long as we can. We've done the same thing. We've deburred the edges, rounded the corners off. Now these skins are all pre-punched. So the next thing we need to do is actually take the 603 and cleco it down to the 601. Now you want to do it and leave all you do like every third or fourth hole. So you'll actually just cleco and skip a few holes. And come right on down. Now you can do this on both sides, that's fine. What you're trying to do is just line the 601 and the 603 up. Now you'll find the clecos will be just a little tight, and that's all right because the holes are just a little undersized. What we're going to do next is actually take a drill and a drill bit and ream these holes with a number 40 drill bit. With clecos put in every third or fourth hole, now we're ready to run our drill through. We're going to use a number 40 drill bit, and all we're doing is opening the holes up and aligning any misalignment that may be very slight. So we just start at one end. Now once we've done all the way down, of course the obvious thing is you have to move your clecos one and get all the holes that your clecos were in. Once you've done this to both sides, you're ready to do it to both of the 601s and the 603s. Now before you take this apart, you want to mark on the spar some numbering scheme so you get this 601 mated back up with this 603 skin, or this 603 spar mated back up with this 601 skin, so you don't get them mixed up. Do both of them like that. Take it apart. The next thing to do is go ahead and dimple the spar itself. It's easiest to dimple now rather than after the flange has been riveted on. So we're going to take this apart and dimple it. Now using a hand squeezer outfitted with a set of 3 30-second dimple dies, we're just going right on down and dimple each hole. And dimpling's easy enough. You just squeeze it until the dies bottom out. You can't really over dimple using a hand squeezer. Once your spars have been dimpled, you want to go to the next step, which is preparing your 609 flanges. Next we have to get the 609 flange ready. Now the 609 comes pre-cut, the taper's cut in it. All you need to do is take a Vixen file and file it a little bit to get some of the cutting marks off. Take a smaller file, file it down, and then either use like 400 grit sandpaper or a Scotch-Brite wheel and polish this edge off till it's a mirror finish. You want to get all the scratches and cutting marks off. Once you've got that done to both of them, the 609 is ready to be mated up with the 603s. The jig that we're going to use for building our horizontal and vertical stabilizer is basically the same jig you'll be using to build your wings. It's comprised of 2 upright posts. It can be made out of metal, wood 4x4s. We like to use wood 2x4s that have been nailed together or screwed together. They seem to stay straighter. Between them is a beam made out of 2 2x4s that have been nailed together, and we'll use that as a work surface for building the jigs, or building the spars, and use it for holding the stabilizers in place as we're riveting. Once the 609 has been polished off and smoothed down according to the plans, we've also checked to make sure that it fits inside of the 603 properly. Now both the 609 and the 603 are pre-drilled, so like we did with the skins, we want to go through and put a cleco every 3 or 4 holes and then back drill, reaming all those holes with a number 30 drill bit. I like to do this on the jig because I can drill through here and just cleco it right down to the jig. I wouldn't want to do this to the workbench. So this time, using a number 30, we'll find the first hole at each end, line the drill bit in it, go ahead and drill it. Then we're going to come down to the other end with the holes all lined up. Drill it. Now we can see that our holes are lined up. We're going to drill about every 3 or 4 holes, putting a cleco in. That'll hold it right down to the jig so nothing can move on us. Once we've done this all the way down, then we'll go ahead and back drill the ones in between. Opening those holes up to a number 30 hole. We'll do this to both ends. We'll line the other side up and get the holes lined up, and we'll do the same thing, drilling them together. Once we've got them all together, we're going to go ahead and mark both the 603 and the 609, so when we take this apart for painting, we can get them back in the same spot. Next thing we want to do is place the HS 412 and 413 hinge brackets. Now they come to you, they've been pre-drilled and pre-bent. All you have to do is locate where they go on the spar, and per the plans there's a measurement that gives you from the center where the two 603 pieces meet out to where the hinge brackets go. Just like everything else, all you want to do is line the holes up, drill through them. That'll open them up, cleco it, line the next one up. That'll open that up. And like I said, we do this on the jig, that way we can drill in and rather than drill the workbench. We come down to the 413s, and they're basically the same thing. They've been pre-drilled. The spar is pre-drilled. All we have to do is locate them in the holes, drill our holes out, and put them in place. Once they're in place, these have already been drilled. They'll look just like that. Okay, you want to go ahead and do this on both ends, so all the 412 and 413s are in place. The next thing we need to do is make up the HS411. HS411 bracket comes two pieces. Now, the one piece will be, both pieces are pre-cut with the hole in the center, but only one of them has the holes drilled in them. What we need to do is now match drill that. So what we do is we take the two, we put them together, and I like to go ahead and cleco them down to a board using some side grip clamps, making sure the contours fit, and just cleco it down to the board. This will help hold it in place while we're doing our drilling. Next, we want to just drill through the 411 that has the holes and drill holes through the ones that don't have the holes. Now, we've got some of these already drilled. Take the side grip clamp off. But what we're trying to do is just match drill these holes right on through. And the object is to clamp it and so it can't move. And we'll go ahead and go all the way around, drilling all the holes out. Once we've done that, we can take it apart. Put our bearing inside. Cleco it back together. And that's what the 411 is going to look like. Now, we'll wait till we primer the bearing and primer the steel before we rivet it together. But this is, with the clecos holding it, we can now place this on our spar and drill it into place. Next, we take our HS411 assembly, put it in the center. Now there's already pre-drilled 1/8" holes. We can cleco one side in. And the holes are close enough that you can actually cleco them in place. Now, when we back drill these holes, however, we won't use an 1/8" bit, but we'll use a number 12. These do not get riveted, they get bolts put on them. The number 12 is the drill you want to use for a number 3 bolt. So we'll go ahead and drill through everything now with a number 12 bit. And using a 3/16 cleco it down in place. And we'll go ahead and do this on all 4 of them. At this point, the rear spar of the horizontal stabilizer has been drilled and clecoed entirely together. It's ready to be taken apart, deburred, primered, clecoed back together for final assembly and riveting. To speed things up, we like to go ahead and make the forward and rear spar all at the same time and then primer them all together. So we're going to go ahead and make up the forward spar. We start by making the 810 spar flange. Now it's basically made out of a piece of angle that on one side you've cut it off, put your radius in. You've also gone ahead and drawn a center line on this and pre-drilled the holes per the instructions and per the plans. The 810 is fairly easy. Once you get this all cut out, you want to make sure that you use sandpaper or Scotch-Brite wheel and get it all smoothed out. Next is the 814. It's the bigger of the two. Has a cutout here. This will get bent, as does the 810, but not right away. We start by cutting this flange off, drilling this hole and cutting back to that hole. The hole is to allow for bending here. And this is just per the instructions and per the plans. And again, we've drawn a center line and pre-drilled our holes, and we've deburred those holes so we don't scratch up the 802 as we're working with it. The flange web itself has also been modified. We've taken and cut a notch here, cut part of the spar flange off, and again you drill a hole in the corner and cut down to it. You want to cut enough of this to get any of the radius of the flange off. So it'll look like this. Of course, it doesn't have holes in it. This one does because we've already drilled it. Then we come back to our jig. We've measured the end of the 802, and we use a T-square. It's hard to measure a radius area with just a ruler, so you actually use a sliding T-square and set it and adjust it till you find the center. So we've marked the center here, and we've also marked the center here. Now we've done that to both sides, and we'll set that in our jig. We also had to put a block of wood in the jig, one in the center and one at each end, because we're going to be working with the flanges down. Once we've got our centers marked on both of them, we're going to go ahead and stretch a string completely across the spar, and we're going to use that to line all these center marks up and get this spar lined up straight. Once our 802 pieces have been modified, and we've put them back in the jig over top our little blocks of wood, and we've also marked our centers, and we've got centers on both of them here and here, and then we've got centers down at both ends. We've stretched our string now, and what we want to do, and what I did on the string, I just brought the string up through the jig itself, and then down at this end right here, I've got a little sandbag, and that keeps the string tight for me. Now we do the process of lining them all up. Now there's two things you're trying to get lined up. First, you're trying to get all the center marks to be on that string. That lets us know that the spar is straight in the center. The next thing we need is our overall length. Our overall length, 97 5/8 inches. You'll end up, as they say in the book, with a little gap right here in the center, and that's okay. What you're trying to achieve is that overall length. So we just move them around till we get them in place, do our measuring. Then we put a couple clecos through them in a place that shouldn't bother. We've put two here, we've put one down here, and that's now holding this straight for us. Once we've got this straight, and we can go ahead and check our measurement, and that measurement is from end to end, 97 5/8. Now our 802 is in position. We can then take our 814 and our 810 and put on. Now they get centered. Now remember, they've been pre-drilled, but the 802 is not. However, the 810 and 814 is supposed to be 3 1/4 inches apart, and you want that centered. So with your string still in place, and you want to make sure it's going right through all your center lines, just like you wanted. You can start measuring. Now you measure off from the string, and half, 3 1/4 inches, and measure it out. And then you can measure across. And you just start working with these. 3 1/4. Okay, and the same thing down here, measure it, see if it's 3 1/4, and then you measure from your string to your edge, see if it's half the 3 1/4, Once you get those in place, you can go ahead and clamp them, just any kind of clamp, before you drill. And it's important because they'll move real easy on you. So you want to go ahead and get them where you want them, measure them, clamp them, and drill them. Now we've already drilled these. Now when you go to drill, remember, you're not going to drill any of the holes that are out on the ears. Now we've pre-drilled these already, and they'll go just like that. Okay, now we've drilled all the holes in here. We've not drilled the ears. The ears won't get drilled until after we bend the 810 and 814. And that's the next step we need to do, is go ahead and take these off and bend the 810 and 814, and then bend the 802 to meet it, and then we'll drill these holes. When bending the 810 and 814, you want to be careful, one, not to overbend it, two, to bend it straight. Now we're going to clamp it in the vise. Make sure we've got it straight. We're just going to use our T-square to align it. To check our bend, you only need 6 degrees. Now you can use a cardboard template like the plans say, or you can even use a small protractor. So we're just going to clamp it in here, give it a little bit of a push, not much, take it out, check it, needs just a little bit more. So we jig it back up right how we had it before, check it for straight. Remember to bend these down. Give it just a little bit more. And that's got it. 6 degrees, right on the money. If you overbend it just a tad, you can bend it back, but don't do too much or she'll break right off on you and you'll have to make a new one. On the other side, we'll just jig it in place, just like we did the other one, and bend it. You do this to both the 810 and the 814. Once the 810 and 814 are bent, they're clecoed back on. Now we've just got the 814 in place here so you can see it a little bit easier. We've put our clecos back in. We've taken some little C-clamps right here and clamped the 802 and the 814 right where it bends to draw it up into that bend. Now we can go ahead and drill these holes here, and that'll have our drilling done. As with any drilling process, you always drill and cleco. And we'll work our way down the ears on both sides. Then you can actually put them both on at the same time, which may be preferred. Like I said, we just put the one on so you could see. But once you've done this, then your forward spar has been drilled and clecoed together, and it's ready to be taken apart, deburred, primered, and can be painted with the rear spar at the same time. Now when you go to primer, you might want to go ahead and primer your 404, your 405. You want to go ahead and deburr your lightning holes using some emery cloth and a swivel deburring tool. Also, all of them you want to check your edges and make sure they're all smooth and your corners are rounded. Your 606, your 607, and your 608. So they're all primered when you're ready to put the horizontal stabilizer spar together. So from here we're going to go ahead and primer, and then we're ready to start assembling. After priming, we went ahead and assembled the rear spar. Now one side we've already done, and this is what it looks like. Now remember, at the hole at 3 7/16, and the hole at 22 and 15/16 don't get rivets. Those holes are used to attach your other ribs. Everything else is just riveted in. Remember, your center, your 411 gets bolted in, and we'll show you how to do that here in a second. Everything else is clecoed in on the other side and is ready for riveting. Now, we rivet just like we did before. Is we put some clecos in about every 2 or 3 holes, and then we'll squeeze our rivets in between there. We've already clecoed in our H12 and our H13 brackets, and they're ready to go. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and finish bolting in the H11. That gets a number 3 bolt according to the plan, and a washer. The bolt goes head through, washer and nut on the back. Now, these bolts should be torqued, and you torque them down to between 20 and 25 inch-pounds. So we've got our torque wrench, and we've set it to 25 inch-pounds. So we'll go ahead and put our wrench on here, our torque wrench on the back, and we'll torque this one down. It's important, especially in these high load, high stress bolts like this, that you can't get back into check, that you don't over tighten them. There it is. On this type of torque wrench, you just tighten until it clicks. So we've got one other hole to do, and we'll do that one here in a bit. Next, we want to go ahead and start squeezing our rivets in here. Now, you'll find with priming, sometimes you get paint in the holes and the rivets won't go in, and you may have to just run the bit through just to ream it out. We've marked that 3 and 7/16 with a line, and we've marked the 22 and 15/16, so we don't put rivets in there. If you do, all is not lost. You're just going to have to drill them out. So you start at one end, just put your rivet in, the rivet that's called for in the plans. And we're going to show you how to squeeze both with the Avery hand squeezer. And basically, once you've got it set, you get it around. The trick is to make sure that your flush set on this side is dead in the center. That'll give you a good squeeze and a good straight rivet. And you just squeeze it on down. Now we need to adjust this a little bit, and you adjust these by just turning them. These are nice squeezers. They got nice long handles. You can get lots of leverage. Once you squeeze it, you get your rivet gauge out. Check it. It won't go through the hole, and it won't go through the notch. So that rivet's done. Now, for those of you that may have trouble squeezing rivets, or maybe not real strong hands or something, you can use a pneumatic squeezer. Same thing, you put your rivet in, you get your pneumatic squeezer, put your pneumatic squeezer over it, bring it up, make sure the set is centered just like before, and that's it. This one needs to be adjusted a little bit more. Try it one more time. There we go. So let me do one more from the side for you so you can see what's going on here. Again with the hand squeezer, and you can do this process with a hand squeezer. We've got it over the cup, we've got it centered, and we squeeze it down. So now you just need to go ahead and finish the rest of these up. Watch when you get to your H412 and 413s, they use a little bit different size rivets, so don't forget to change your rivet size. Once this is all riveted together, you're ready to go ahead and assemble the forward spar. Before we rivet the front spar together, there's a couple things we need to do. Make sure you've drilled the hole for your cable, your trim cable, and that's per the drawings. Also, if you look on the drawings, the center two holes, the ones that are next to each other dead center, are flush rivets. Now what that means is that on the inside of the 810 and 814, we're going to have to countersink. Then we're going to have to dimple the spar web to accept that countersink. Now to countersink, we're just going to use the countersink gauge. The hole's already drilled. Make sure you do it on the inside. And we're just going to go and countersink just the center two. Right. Then we're going to set up our dimple dies and our hand squeezer and go ahead and dimple those. And now we're ready to assemble these back together. And we'll put the 814 on. And again, we put a cleco in like every other hole, and we'll do every other rivet, and then we'll take those clecos out and finish up. Now what you can do, since this thing's kind of cumbersome when it's real long, is just do one side at a time. So you're not trying to horse around this whole thing. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put our universal rivets in, make sure that we put countersunk rivets here, and we'll assemble our spar. Once you finish riveting, here's what the forward spar will look like. Here's your flush rivets right here. This one and this one. Also, if you have trouble getting to these rivets right here on the 814, you can go ahead and just hand drive those with a rivet gun and a bucking bar. We had to do that. Our squeezer just wouldn't get over the H14 flange and get a good straight shot. For now, we can just set the forward spar aside, and we're ready to start mounting our ribs onto our rear spar. The next step is to mount our HS606 onto our rear spar. Now, I'm just putting a little block of wood under here to help hold it up. What you can do is cut some strips of aluminum. These are like 032, about 4 inches long and 1.25 inches wide. And what these do is simulate the skin that's going to be going on. And it'll help us to center all of our ribs on our spar. And we'll clamp these on here. And we're using some cleco side grips. Once that's clamped on, we've already pre-drilled our holes in the bottom of our 606 according to the plans. We're going to go ahead and just slide that over the spar. Our pieces of aluminum will center it for us. We'll take one cleco side grip and clamp on the end here. And a couple clamp the little tabs to the spar. And you can sight right down and just make sure that the rib is flush with the end of the spar, and there it is. It's centered up for us. Next, we're going to go ahead and drill through the holes that were in the 606. We're going to be using the long aircraft drill bit. drill one. Move our block of wood down here. And put a cleco in it. We're going to drill the other one. All right. Then we can remove our side grips. And we'll put another cleco in it. And our 606 in place. The next thing we want to do is basically the same thing, but to our 608. Now the 608 will go where we've left those rivet holes open at 23, or at 23 and 15/16. It's also, if you're doing some measuring, it's 23 1/4 inches from the center to here. And then if you want to double check your measurements, it's 26 inches from the other end to where this rib will go. And you'll probably find that those marks are both in the same place, so it's a way to double check. Again, we'll go ahead and use the cleco side grips and put our little aluminum tabs on. And this is really the easiest way to center these up. This will center it up for you real nice. Now we don't have any holes drilled in the 608 because we're going to back drill through the spar. Make sure you have your flange facing to the center. Once you get it in place with some side grips, then you can double check your measurements. Again, you want 26, and then you want 23 1/4. And we're right there. Yep. Once we've got it in place, we'll flip it over. Something else you could do is actually draw a little center line through your rib, and when you turn it over, you ought to be able to see that center line in the hole. But we've done the measuring, so we know we're where we need to be. Now we're going to back drill. Putting our clecos in. And we'll check our measurements, make sure nothing moved on us. And once we've got that, we can take the side grips off. The last thing to do is the 405, which goes up in the center, and that's done the exact same way, and then you want to do them on the other side also. Now remember, on all your bulkheads, you may have to check and make sure they're straight. And on plans, I think it's plan 6, is a little diagram on where to flute to straighten these. And we only had to straighten the 606s. But we also had to cut our lightning holes out of them 504s per the instructions. And once it's all put together, here's what it looks like. And we're really ready to go ahead and set our jig up now and put this in the jig. Next we have to get our jig ready before we can mount the rear spar. Now what we've done is down the length of the jig we've put a chalk line, and we've put that in the center of our board here. Then down at both ends we've come up vertically using a level to get ourselves a plumb line here. We've done that on both ends. We've also done it down at this end, so we have a center line. Then we went ahead and mounted our jig fixtures that we got from Avery's, and you can see on this one right here we had to do a little shimming, and that's all right. If the jig isn't, you know, perfectly straight, you can shim these jig fixtures a little bit. Also from Avery's we got these little fixture brackets or pins that you run a string through, and that'll hold your string dead center in that hole, and you run your string through all your jig fixtures right on down, and simple measuring you can figure out where these fixtures go. You got 2 go in the center, and that's where the 411 will go, and then you've got 1 for each of the 412 and 413. Once your string has been stretched, and again we've just got a little sandbag on it to keep it taut for us, you align your fixtures so that that string goes right through the center of the hole. And if you need to shim them a little bit, you can shim them, get them all straight, screwed down to your jig. Now you're ready to go ahead and mount your rear spar to these fixtures. Now that we've got our jig fixtures mounted to our jig, we went ahead and mounted the rear spar to the jig fixtures and just put some little bolts through the fixtures, through the 412s and 413s to hold it on. Now it'll rock back and forth here, but that's all right. Now at both ends, where the 606 there's a tooling hole up at the top, we've used that tooling hole as a guide and drilled through that line that we've put on the end of the jig. Now what that line will be for eventually is we'll take a piece of threaded rod and we'll go through the jig and through the 606, and that'll bolt that in place, and that'll hold the 606 at both ends where we want it. We've done that at both ends. Right now we're not worried about it that much. At this point we're ready to go ahead and put the forward spar on and see how it fits. Once the forward spar is on, then the fun starts, getting this all lined up. Now we haven't put our threaded rods in here, but we'll put our threaded rods in and we'll get our 606s plumbed up, and we'll actually use a plumb line and get those on both ends plumbed up. Then we'll come down to our 608 and we'll do the same thing. We'll get them in position, plumbed up. The 405's pretty easy. They only go to one place, and that's at the end of the spars. Then once we get this all in place, we'll check it. We can use a clamp to hold us right here. Once we get it where we want it, we can space this out, or some arrangement for a clamp to hold the forward spar. So this is all held straight in here. At this point we want to go ahead and mark some lines on our ribs. Now what our lines are for, we'll actually just take a magic marker and draw a line right straight down the center of the rib, like that, all the way down. We'll do the same thing on our spars. Draw a line all the way up and down. Now what these lines are for is, remember, our skins are pre-drilled. When we put our skins on here, we ought to be able to look through the holes and see those lines. Before we actually drill these, we just want to get this in position and put a side grip on it. You can actually put a side grip on one side and put your skin partly on the other side and check and make sure this is aligned the way you want it. So use your skin for measurement, your lines, get this all set up, and then you're ready to start drilling this through the skins, drilling this onto the skin. Now once we've got our skeleton all made up, and we've only put this tip rib in, we haven't put this one in yet, because we can do that later with the skin on. We put this one in, and now we can reach in to line it up. But we've got our skin on, we've got our little wooden clamps, and basically they're just a piece of plywood cut like this, just about the same size as the thickness of the stabilizer right here. And what you do is just slide this over, and if it's a little loose, you can make some little wedges out of just some wood and take the wedges and tighten it up. What that's doing is pushing the skin against the spar here. So you gotta be careful not to press in on the where you don't want it. Right there on the spar. We've got it clecoed down at the bottom here. We've got cleco side grips along the side here, holding it there. Same thing down at this end. We've got cleco side grips all along here. We've got them on both sides. Now if we look through our holes, we should be able to see our lines that we drew up and down our ribs. From here, what we want to do is start drilling. Now the drilling process is to start at the bottom, and we'll do the bottom ones here and work our way up till we get to the spar. Then we'll work out and up here. Then we'll put this and finish that up. So we'll get started on the drilling. Like I said, we'll start down here at the bottom, over on this side, and over here. Clecoing as we go. Remember, the important thing here is cleco in every hole. Okay, and that's going to be our pattern, just all the way up. Once we've drilled all the way up to the spar, to the forward spar, now we want to start in the center and work our way out. What we're trying to do is just work any wrinkles or misalignments that may work out. So we're going to drill here in the center. And then side to side. Next thing we want to do is look through our hole, it's right here, and make sure we can see the line on that rib, and we can. This is a good point to go ahead and now put the 404 in, and it can just be placed in like that. Get some cleco side grips. Using the cleco side grips, hold it right in place, making sure that it's down on the spar. Once we've got it in place, we can then drill through it using the long drill bit through the spar, through this rib here, and then that's attached. Using our long 12-inch drill bit, we can just reach right down and go ahead and do both holes, clecoing as you go. Now we can finish drilling the skin to the rest of the ribs. Once we've got this rib in place, now we can go ahead and finish our drilling, and we're just going to drill out and up until we get all the way to the ends, and then we'll finish going up the ends, and then do this on both sides and on both halves, and our skin will be completely drilled to the skeleton. Once we're done drilling, here's what it'll look like, all clear coat on. From here we're ready to go ahead and take it off, deburr everything, and that's a process that a lot of people try to skip, but don't do it. Deburr everything. We're going to dimple the skins using the Avery rivet dimple tool, the big C-jig tool. We'll dimple all our ribs using a hand squeezer. At this point we can pull the plastic off, and some people like to just pull it off right where we're going to be dimpling and riveting, and that's fine, leaving the other plastic on to help protect the skin, as long as you're not going to leave it on too long. So from here we're going to take this all apart and get ready for dimpling. Once the skins have been taken off and deburred, next thing to do is dimpling. We've got the Avery dimple tool with our dimple dies, male on the bottom, female on the top. A couple things you're going to need is some hearing protection. This gets loud, and we like to use our wooden dimpling mallet. Now we've also taken some pieces of 2x4 and just covered them with carpet, and that brings our material up to about the same height as the dimple dies and keeps it level for us. So the process is just to center the holes that are in there over the dimple, bring it down, dimple. Move on to the next hole. Now there's no real pattern to how to dimple. The object is just to make sure you get all the holes done. So from here we're going to go ahead and dimple all our skins. Next comes dimpling the skeleton. For that we use the hand squeezer, same dimple dies, and just put them in and give it a squeeze. Now we haven't riveted the skeleton all together yet, it's still clecoed. Once we get it all dimpled, deburred, dimpled, then we'll rivet it together. For right now we're just going to dimple. Once the holes have all been dimpled, the next thing is to go ahead and finish riveting the skeleton back together. And that can be either done with the hand squeezer or with a bucking bar and rivet gun. But you just want to go ahead and rivet it. Remember, the 404 you don't want to rivet in yet. That allows you to reach inside here so you can buck these rivets here. So don't do your 404, just leave that clecoed in. But you want to go ahead and rivet everything else in. Now once your skin has been riveted to the skeleton, here's what it'll look like. Now to get it this way, it's not bad. What you want to do is you start with your top side. And what we did is we riveted the top side because it's easy, because the bucker can reach up underneath here. Once the top side's done, you have to bend this down. And when we did the bottom side, what we did, we started with this row of rivets right here, and we worked our way right on up to here. And then we started staggering our rivets like this, and you've got to reach up underneath here. And it's not as bad as it sounds, it just takes a little time. So from here, we're going to go ahead and start on the bottom side, and we'll show you what that looked like. On the top side, we're going to start at the bottom and work our way straight on up, right here in the center. Then once we get up here, we're going to work our way out and then on up the rest of the way. Now, because of the thickness of the skin, the 032, it needs to be dimpled, but it doesn't give a real good dimple sometimes. What we like to do, we take the Avery speed deburr, just put it in the hole and give a couple turns. You shouldn't even see material come out. You just want to give a couple turns. What this does, your dimple has a rounded effect to it, but your rivets are flat on the bottom. And we're just cutting off the top of that round, still leaving lots of material, and your rivets will seat in there a lot nicer. So from here, we're going to go ahead and rivet this up. We're using a 2X gun with about 55 pounds of pressure. Becky will be on the other side, bucking. We're both wearing hearing protection, and we're going to do some riveting. Ready?
Go. Good.
We move our cleco up, always keeping the cleco in front of where I'm working. Ready?
Go.
You'll find that after a while from riveting, you'll get used to like a 2-second burst, or you can actually hear when it's done sometimes. Ready?
Go.
Ready?
Go.
When you get to the junction of where this rib meets the forward spar, you'll find that you have to put a little bit bigger rivet. Those other rivets were all 3-3.5s. You're going to need a 3-4 up in there because you've got the skin, the spar, and a rib in there. Ready?
Go.
Once we're there, we'll start working our way to the inside. Ready?
Go.
Until this entire section's done. Now that we've worked in, now we're going to work from the center out. Ready?
Go. Good.
Ready?
Go.
Once these are all done, next we need to come and do these up here. We can get these first 3 just fine. When we go to do the top 3, what we'll have to do is cleco this down a little bit to help pull it in. So we want to roll it in so we get a nice tight fit up there. So we'll do the first 3 and then we'll cleco it down. Ready?
Go.
Ready?
Go.
Ready?
Go.
Once we've bucked the ones in the center, the ones on the edges we just go ahead and hand squeeze in. We've already got our hand squeezer set, so we just squeeze them in. Starting at the middle, we're going to work our way out to both sides. And then once we've gone out both sides, we'll come up, and remember, still the 404 is not in yet, so we'll only come up this high. The bottom side's the tricky part. We've put clecos just in the top part of the end rib. We've put clecos the full length of the forward spar. Now we're going to start out here in this outboard hole, and we're slowly going to work this way. And Becky's going to have to reach under here like this to buck while I'm riveting. We've also wrapped a towel around her arm. These edges aren't sharp, but just that constant pressure on her arm we found tends to bruise sometimes. So that's the purpose of the towel. So we're going to just start here and work our way right on up until we get up to this center section again. And at that point we'll change our rivet pattern.
You might want to put one or two down in here just to hold that down. Oops. Rivet fell on the floor, dear.
Ready?
Go.
Ready?
Go.
And we'll work our way right on up. You'll find it does get easier the higher up you go. Again, once we got to the intersection of the ribs and the forward spar, we had to change rivet size to a 3-4. Now we're just going to do the stagger, top spar, rib, and work our way out. If you go along here, it's going to make it difficult to get this one. If you go along just this one, it makes it difficult to get up here. So that's why we're walking them out.
Let me get the bucking bar up in there.
Ready?
Go.
Ready?
Go.
Once we've completed all the riveting on the forward spar, the only thing left is this one tip rib. And like I said, Becky will have to reach in through the hole left open by the 404 to buck these in here. This top hole on both sides, we had trouble getting to dimple it, so we actually countersunk that one hole. Everything else was dimpled. Now that we've got the riveting done in here, the rest is fairly easy. First thing we want to do is place our 404, and we just go ahead and put it in place. Hold it in with some clecos along the side first. That'll help us get it aligned. Next we want to go ahead and rivet it in. Now to do that, we're going to use a real long rivet set. That's so we can get right down onto the rivet head there, and it makes it real easy. go in a hole we're not riveting. A line. And we're ready to go. Once that's done, the rest of the riveting is fairly easy. We just hand squeeze all the way around the edges, and our horizontal stabilizer is done. Now we're ready to go on to the vertical stabilizer. To start the vertical stabilizer, we want to do basically like we did with the horizontal, a few changes. We want to take the 801 and the 803, and we want to cleco them together. And again, we just cleco every so often. And then the reason for that is we're going to take and back drill through these. Now once that's done, you want to take that apart, because there's two things you need to do. You need to deburr anything here that needs to be deburred. Then on the bottom of the 803, this area of rivets right in here all have to be, on the 803, need to be dimpled. And the reason for that is this needs to be a flush surface here so it can butt up against the fuselage. So we're going to dimple these. And to do that, we just use the hand squeezer. Use our hand squeezer with our 8-inch dimple dies on it. And we just go right on down, dimpling the holes. Now, on the 801 side that matches up to these dimples, once you got those dimpled, and like I said, it's this area right in here, and it shows it on the plans. On the 801 side, the area that butts up to those dimples, we need to countersink. So with that, we just use our countersink gauge. And whenever you're using the countersink gauge, you want to do some test countersinks on some scrap. But basically, you just put the cutter down in the hole. And then go to the next one. Now the best tool to gauge whether these are countersunk deep enough is actually a 426 rivet. You can put it down in there and the head should be flush. Once you've done this, you want to go ahead and put the 801 and the 803 back together. And we're just going to stick a few clecos in here real quick. The next thing you want to do is start mounting your attachment points, which are going to be your 412s, look like that. They're going to go up at the top end. And again, the holes are drilled, and you just need to cleco a couple clecos in, and then you're going to back drill these out to get the holes aligned right and get the right size hole in them. Once the 412s are in, you want to go ahead and put the 4 11s in, 4 11s, and then once the 4 11s are in, then you're going to want to put the 4 10s all the way down at the end. Now you'll notice there's 2 different 4 10s. Let's go ahead and put the 4 11s in here real quick. Now you'd want a few more clecos in than what I've got right now. The 411, one of them will have 6 holes drilled on the bottom. That's the uppermost one. The other one only has 4 holes. You'll notice the holes in these 2 corners are missing. That's the lower one. The other 2 holes will be drilled when the vertical stabilizer is attached to the fuselage and there's bolts go through there. So we go ahead and cleco these in. Then we take our drill and we back drill all these holes for these brackets. The next step now is just like the horizontal stabilizer. We're going to cleco the skin to the spar. Now the skin and the spar have both been pre-drilled, and we want to just align the bottom hole up, or the skin with the bottom hole in the spar. And just like with the stabilizer, you'll notice that the clecos are fairly tight going in, and that's fine because you got to remember the holes are undersized. So we're going to go ahead and cleco the whole spar down just like before, back drill through our holes, and that just gets our alignment. Once you've done this, then we're ready to start assembling the skeleton. To hold the skeleton to the jig, we use the same jig fixtures as we did with the horizontal stabilizer. What we've done is mounted the 2 end ones. The center one we put the string. Now to get our placement, I actually just pinned them to the spar, set it up here, and drew a line so I knew right where they needed to go. Then I took them off the spar and placed them on those lines, centering them on the center line that runs up and down the jig. I then ran my string in here, and that showed me where I needed to shim, and I only needed to shim this one down here just a slight bit to get them all fit real nice. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and pin the spar in this jig. And you can do that just by using some number 3 bolts that comes with the kit. You don't need to put nuts and washers or anything, just stick the bolts in. Simple clamp on the side here will hold it for me. Next we want to start placing our skeleton. Our 806 goes down on the end, and again, to get the placement, we're going to use some cleco side grips and some little pieces of aluminum, and we'll side grip the tabs of aluminum onto the spar or onto the rib. This is to help us center over the spar. We've also got our threaded rod in here, and we'll run that through the hole up the top here. Once we've got it centered, we can just drill and cleco that on in. We've already drilled this one. And we'll put a washer and a nut. We'll adjust these in a little bit. There is a measurement on the plans that tells you from your plumb line how far up to place this, but there's an easier way to figure out where to place it. We're going to show here in just a minute. Once that's in place, we just want to come right on down to our 407, which goes right here. And again, we did the same thing. We just used Cleco side grips, put the little tabs on the side, and that centered it for us, using our measurement that's on the plans to figure out where it goes. And we can Cleco this one in place. Now this can be done on the workbench, but it's a lot easier for me to do it up here where it's held upright. Next we want to come down to our 404, and again we've done our measuring where it goes. We use our little aluminum to get it centered, and it'll go on the end here. Next comes our forward spar. Now the forward spar has an attachment point on this, the 806, and it's a measurement from the spar up. So we start there, and again we used our little tabs to center it and got it all figured out, and we drilled that in place. Now comes what seems to be the tricky part, but really isn't once you look at it. We've got three things we need to align. One, we need to align the 806, and it's not plumb, it's got an offset a little bit. Then we need to align the 407, well it's straight up and down. Then the 404 is not plumb, it actually has a bend forward. And you can see on the plans it's an inch, about 1 3/8 off plumb. So how do we get this where we want it? Well, there's an easy way. We drew a straight line down our 404. Now we're going to put our skin back on. This one has to line up with the bottom of the skin. This one has to line up with the top of the skin. This one has to line up with the holes that are pre-drilled in the skin. So we're going to use our skin as our alignment tool. We start by Clecoing the skin back on, and this time we want to put quite a few Clecos in it. I'm putting about every fourth hole. I'm putting a Cleco in right now. Okay, next we want to use our little C clamps and clamp the back side. Hold it in for us. Then we can take some Cleco side grips and position this right on the edge of the skin and put some side grips on it. Then we can come down here and position this right on the edge of the skin. Now remember, our forward spar is attached to it, so it's going to move the forward spar as we move it. But that'll get us our proper angle that we want in there. Now we'll double check this. Once we tighten this nut up on this threaded rod, we'll double check and make sure that's sitting there according to the plans also. But for right now, this is a good start. Then we can look through our holes, and we ought to be able to see our black line, and right now we can. The only thing left to put in place is our 405, and again, that'll just get put in here after we've got everything else, and it just gets slid in and drilled through the holes that we'll drill on this. The 405 doesn't have to be let out like on the horizontal stabilizer because there's nothing to reach inside and buck, so it'll all get put together at once. We'll go around on the back side, and what we're doing is looking through the holes to see if we can see our line, and we can. I'm going to take this clamp off now, tighten our threaded rod down in position, and then we're ready to start drilling up through the ribs into the forward spar and get everything into position. First we pull the back skin down and cleco it in place. That's so I can go ahead and put some cleco side grips now on this bottom rib and drill through the bottom rib through the forward spar. With the skin clecoed in place and side grips on the bottom spar, we're ready to back drill through the spar, or through the rib up into the spar. Again, like I said, we're using the skin as our alignment tool. Now our forward spar is held in place in two places, one by the bottom rib, one by the top rib. We can then take our skin off and worry about our center 404 rib. With the skin lifted, we can now adjust our 404. We'll look on one side and see if we can see our black line. Reach around and adjust it. And right there, I can see the black line. So we'll come around here, put a clamp on it, go check it one more time, make sure it hadn't moved, and it hadn't. Now, using all the cleco side grips we've got, we've clamped the top and bottom ribs on both sides. We've clamped it down using our little wooden clamp, and we've clecoed the skin on both sides, so it's held in the skeleton as tight as can be. Now we're ready to start drilling. We can look in the holes here and see our little black line as we can on the other side. So we're going to start here and work up and then work out. What we're trying to do is work any wrinkles or imperfections out so we don't have any oil canning. With the sides being clecoed like this, it helps hold it in place. So we're just going to start here, cleat on as we go. Now with this line of rivets drilled and clecoed in on both sides, we've gone ahead and removed our little wooden clamp. Now we're ready to start going up our forward spar. Now you can look at the end and verify that the pre-drilled holes are lining up with the forward spar. You can also draw your little black line down the spar with your pen, and you should be able to see your line through here. From here we're just going to alternate back and forth. And we're going to drill the rest of the holes on the forward spar. Then we'll also come down here to the corners and start in on our corners. Now that we've got this area drilled and clecoed, you can go ahead and do the same thing down at that end if you want, but at least this area, both sides, we're ready to put the 405 in. We want to pull our clecos out that's holding the bottom rib on. We can now just slide the 405 into place. Line it all up. Take a bunch of side grips and clamp it where it needs to be. You want to do this on both sides. This clamp here is just to hold the bottom for you once you get it in place. There's been a lot of mistakes made over the years in building, and most of them is just not using enough clamps when you got them available. Once you've got it clamped all in place, then we just want to use our long bit and come up through our existing holes. Once we've got it all clamped in place, we can go ahead and finish drilling our 405. We can finish drilling the entire skin on. Now, from here, what we want to do is go ahead and take it out of the jig, take the skin off. Skin needs to be now deburred and dimpled. The rear spar needs to be disassembled and dimpled also before you assemble it. Then you can go ahead and assemble your rear spar with your 411, 12, and 13 mounts on it. You can go ahead also and assemble your skeleton. Now, before you put it back together, something you may want to do, down and through your skeleton, in this area down along here, you may want to drill yourself some holes, put yourself some snap rings or some bushings with string in there. If you're going to be running electrical wires, now's the time to put your pull cords in. So what we like to do is just drill some 7/16 holes, put some snap bushings in, run some strings through it before we rivet the skin on. So from here we're going to finish our drilling, then we're going to disassemble this, do all our dimpling and cleaning up, painting, and then ready to put it back together. We start the final assembly of our rear spar of our vertical stabilizer by working down at the bottom where we need those countersunk rivets. Now what we've done is put the countersunk rivets in, except where we're going to put our 410 brackets for right now, because these are all the same size. This is a different size rivet. Put them in, put tape on it, riveter's tape, put it on our metal back riveting plate, set it down. In our rivet gun we've put our back rivet set, and we're going to be wearing our hearing protection. And from here all we need to do is just go ahead and rivet. Doing one rivet at a time, starting at the bottom and working up. Once we're done that, we go ahead and peel our tape off. And we've got a nice rivet job there, all nice and smooth. The next thing we want to do is put our 410 brackets in. That uses a little bit longer rivet. And we go ahead and put our rivets in on the back side, just like before. Once we do this, we go ahead and we can even reuse our tape. Tape our rivets in. One more small piece here. Now, you can do this with a hand squeezer or with a rivet gun and a bucking bar, but this just does a much nicer job, much cleaner job. Once we've got the rivets in, we just place our brackets over top of them. Put our hearing protection on and we're ready to go. Once that's done, we can again peel our tape off. And we got a nice smooth finish there. Now from here, the rest of the spar, all we need to do is go ahead and cleco it all in place. Cleco our 411 and 412 brackets in. Don't forget to do that so you don't accidentally put a rivet in a hole that had a bracket. And go ahead and either hand squeeze, pneumatic squeeze, or hand buck all these rivets in. Using the hand squeezer, once it's adjusted, just put your rivets in. The trick to squeezing these is make sure that the rivet is in the center of the set. If it's not in the center, you can almost guarantee it's going to go crooked. And we're just going to work our way right on down. Remember, when we get to our 411 and 411 bracket, we'll need a little bit larger rivet. When we get down to the end, down to our 412, we'll need a little bit smaller rivet. So we're going to go ahead and finish this up. Now that the skeleton's back in the jig, and how we got it this way, we went ahead and hand squeezed where we could, put it back in the jig, and actually used the rivet gun and bucking bar to get most of these. It was just easier. Had to bend this a little bit. But now the skeleton's back in the jig, and we're ready to go ahead and put the skin on. Now we've got our little snap plugs in here, and here, and up there, and we'll string our strings between there before we do put the skin in. But we're ready to go ahead and skin this now. Since it doesn't have a top or bottom, we just pick a side and do it first. And it's a lot like the horizontal stabilizer, where we'll do one side by lifting it up and bucking from there. The next one we'll go ahead and close and work our way out. So from here I'm going to go ahead and put some strings in these eyelets, or these snap rings, and get ready for skinning. Now with the skin back on the skeleton, we're ready to start riveting. We're going to start on the other side so Becky can reach under here and buck. The pattern we're going to use is we're going to start at the intersection of the 407 and the forward spar, and we're going to rivet up towards the top of the stabilizer. Once we've done that, we're going to rivet down the 407, then we're going to come across the forward spar. That's just on this side because it's easy to reach to. When we go to close this side up, it's going to be easier to start here and work our way up, because she's going to have to reach under here, and then we'll stagger across here like we did before. So for now we're just going to do the easy side, and it's time to rivet. With the first skin riveted down, and it makes no difference which side you do first, now we're ready for closing the other one. We're going to start at the top. We've put some clecos in along the very top, but we're going to start at the forward spar at the top and work our way down towards the 407. Now, as we go along, we're going to put more and more clecos in, but right now, down in here, it's kind of tight, so you got to leave them out. As we work our way down, we'll add more clecos till we get to this area, and then we'll stagger between the 407 and the forward spar, putting clecos in, because you'll eventually end up just getting in through this corner. And then we'll finish up by doing the edges. And once you squeeze around the edges, vertical stabilizer's all done, ready to pull the pins out and take it out of the jig, hang it on the wall with the horizontal. We're all done this part. And now it's time to make a couple control surfaces, and we're going to start with the rudder. Construction of the rudder starts just like the stabilizers, by clecoing the skin to the spar, except with one change here. We're going to cleco it to the spar on one side, then we're going to flip it over, take our marking pen, and we're going to mark on the inside all the way down. Mark a line where that spar is. We need that line so we can gauge how big we need to make our stiffeners, because our stiffeners want to come up to all but an 1/8 of an inch from that spar. Once we've done one side, we want to go ahead and uncleco that, cleco the other side down, and do the same thing. At that time you can set the spar aside, and we're ready to mark where our stiffeners go on the inside. Once you've drawn your line where your spar is going to be, now you want to draw your lines for your stiffeners. You look on drawing 7, will give you your spacing for your stiffeners and where to start the lines. The lines for the stiffeners should be at a 90-degree angle to the line for the spar, not with the trailing edge, but this forward edge. Once you get these lines in, then you can go ahead and measure each one to see how long your stiffener has to be, remembering that you want a 1/8 of an inch gap between the stiffener and the spar here, and you want 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch gap between your trailing edge and your stiffener there. So take those measurements into account when you're doing your measuring, what I do is just mark each position. Then you want to go ahead and cut your stiffeners. And remember, you're going to need 2 stiffeners each side, so you're going to cut them in pairs. Now your stiffeners are cut out of pieces of angle that's supplied with the kit. If you look on drawing 7, they give you some dimensions, not length, but dimensions that you want. One, at the one end, you want them to be 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch high, come back 6 inches, and that's the taper you want to cut in. Now it's hard to measure 1/8 of an inch on a radius surface, so what you can do is take a T-square, set it for 1/8 of an inch, set your stiffener angle on top of that, and mark your 1/8 of an inch. That's how you get your 1/8 of an inch. Come back 6 inches, make a mark, draw a line, that's your angle. At the other end, however long it is, they want it cut 15 degrees. So what they end up looking like is this: taper here, angle there, and they're all different lengths. Now remember, you've done your measuring, so you know what lengths, and you need 2 of each. The easiest way to put these angles in is to make one. From that one, make a template. That template, all you're doing is transferring those marks and those angles over. From the template, you can make all the others, so you don't have to sit there and meticulously measure everything. It'll speed it up. Set your template aside. Now that you've got them all cut, and you need to go ahead and file them down nice and smooth, round the corners, smooth all the edges off. Now comes time to drill them. Now you can either mark center line in each of them and mark your rivet spacing, or there's a little jig that you can make. It's made out just of a little box. Take a piece of angle and drill your holes in this piece of angle. Then all you have to do is take your stiffener, set your stiffener in the box, set your angle with the hole in there, and drill through the holes. Take that one out, put your next one in there. Drill through all the holes. It's just a simple little drill jig that'll save you a lot of time for measuring and marking. Now when you're making your drill jig up, one thing you got to watch, your first hole down at the thin end, the very first hole, they want that 3/4 of an inch from the trailing edge. So you got to adjust that hole there when you're starting your drilling. And then just drill right on up to the spar. So from here, we're going to go ahead and cut and drill all our stiffeners in preparation to actually drilling the stiffeners onto the skin. After we've trimmed our stiffener with our snips, got our angle in there, we've also got our 15 degrees at the other end, of course the bottom side's still flat. And file it down, get it nice and smooth around the corners. Take any roughness off with emery cloth. Go ahead and put it in our drill jig with our drill guide on top of it and drill the holes in it. And there, our stiffener is all drilled. We want to go ahead and take a deburring tool and deburr the holes, and we're ready to drill the stiffeners onto the skin. When we talk about drilling the stiffeners onto the skin, we mean just that. One thing you want to do is we've taken a small ruler and drawn an offset line, 1/8 of an inch offset from where the spar was up. That's so we can offset our stiffener away from the spar, just like that. Okay, our spar line is right here, but our stiffener is 1/8 of an inch off. Then we're just going to drill right on through the stiffener, the hole in the stiffener, into the skin and into our board. cleco that down. Now we like to use like a particle board. It tends to stay flatter. The cleco's holding it real well. And we want to just do them all, cleco it right down to the board. Now we're going to do this to all of our stiffeners. We're going to do this all the way down. With the stiffeners all drilled and clecoed on one side, there's two things we want to do right away. One of them is number the stiffeners and the position where they're at. Just 1, 2, A, B, whatever it takes so you can get the same stiffener back into the same spot. We just 1, 2, 3 form. After we do that, we want to go over, and this is before we take these off, we want to go over to our drawings and look on drawing 4. That's going to show you the placement of the next row of stiffeners. They don't line up exactly with each other. They're actually offset a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean. On drawing 4 for the elevator, on the left-hand side is section AA. Now what we did was put this stiffener in right here. The next row of stiffeners above that have to be offset, so they want an overlap of about 1/8 of an inch. The reason for that is if the skin here and skin here would get compressed, this stiffener would impact this stiffener here, this one would impact this one. So they want it offset here. So what that means to us is we're going to have to go back, since we've got all our lines lined up like this, the next row we're going to have to draw a little 1/8 inch offset line before we drill our stiffeners onto our skin. Once we've drilled our other set of stiffeners onto our skin, we're ready to go ahead and take them all off, deburr all our holes, dimple the stiffeners using the hand squeezer, dimple the skins using the rivet dimple tool. At that point we can go ahead and peel the plastic off the outside of the skin for riveting, and we're ready to go ahead and primer everything and bring them back to the workbench for riveting. When you're doing the dimpling, you just want to dimple where your stiffeners are going to go and where your spar is going. The rest of the holes you haven't drilled out yet, so you just want to dimple the stiffeners and the spars. Once your dimpling's done, it's time to put your stiffeners on. We've done this one side, and you can see the stiffeners all in a row here. This is easily done. You start by flipping it over and putting a rivet in each of the holes. Now we're going to be riveting this, back riveting these stiffeners on. We'll put a steel back rivet plate on the workbench and using a back rivet set and a rivet gun. You've got to take a little caution when you're putting these rivets in, because if you tap this skin just a little bit, they'll all come flying out. Once all your rivets are in, take a piece of riveter's tape and cover them up so they don't fall out. Turn your rudder over and then place the stiffener that goes in that position over the rivets. From here we'll take a rivet gun and back rivet each of these rivets, holding real close to the rivets so there's no gap between the stiffener and the skin. Once you got all your rivets done, flip your rudder back over, peel your tape off, it's reusable. And there you got a nice flush surface, ready to go ahead and put rivets in the next stiffener and do it all over again. And with the last stiffener put in place, it's time to go ahead and set this aside and start working on our spar. We start the assembly of the rudder spar with the 802, and we want to go ahead and cleco the 608 on, and that just gets clecoed on, and again we'll back drill through the holes to ream them to the right size and align them. Then we'll do the 607. Now the 608 does not go on the top with the rest of them. It'll actually go inside here. And that'll get clecoed on also. Then on top, we'll put the 405, and that comes already cut out. You just need to deburr it and clean the edges up a little bit. You want to go ahead and take a 3/8 bolt, or you can use one of the 3/8 rod end bearings and slip up through that, and that'll hold the 405 on for you. Once you got that in, you can go ahead and take this cleco out, and then you take your 404 rib, and you'll have to cut a notch in the bottom of it, right here in the bottom, and you'll slide that down in between the 802 and the 405. Now you may have to do a little trimming down here in this corner to get it to fit, but you'll slide them all in. Then out of some 032 aluminum, you're going to go ahead and make a little shim to take up the rest of the space between the 405 and the spar, and that'll slide in there. And then once you got that all adjusted, you can go ahead and drill this whole assembly, drill through the 405 and the spar and the 404. Once you've got it this far in cleco, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and put the top rib on, the 803. We start the assembly of the 803 by putting a line down through the center of the 803. This will be used later when attaching the counterweight skin. Next thing we do, we measure from this edge up 8 1/16, and we place a line. This will be used for aligning it to the 802 spar, and it'll be with this inner edge that it gets lined to. Not with the tab, but this inner edge here. To get it straight on the spar, we go ahead and cleco side grip some pieces of aluminum, like we did the other ribs, to get them straight on the spars. Then we can go ahead and slide it on. Looking down inside here, we can see our line. Place our cleco side grips here to hold it. And then there is some adjusting we can do. The clecos don't hold them real tight. Then we can go ahead and with our clamp it tight. Now we've pre-drilled the 802, the tab on the 802, we've pre-drilled with a hole. So now all we need to do is drill through that hole into the 803. And cleco it in place. Once we've got that clecoed in place, we can go ahead and pull our little metal tabs off. Next thing we want to do is put our counterweight skin on. Now, remember, we drew our little black line. We want to center our counterweight skin over our 803. Using the cleco side grips, cleco it on. And we should be able to look down through the holes in the counterweight skin and see the line in the 803. And it helps to put a lot of side grips on this to get it nice and flat and straight. We want to drill just the 6 holes that are in the counterweight skin to the 803 and no further. The rest of these will get drilled with the skin. Once we've done this, we're ready to take the spar apart, dimple the spar along here to meet the skin, deburr and dimple the counterweight skin. Want to go ahead and primer everything, including the plate nuts that are going to go in the holes here, and then we're ready for final assembly of the spar. Once all the parts have been primed, we've clecoed them back together. Now this time remember to put the plate nut in that the rod end bearing is going to hook to. We've got it clecoed in. We're going to go ahead and rivet this all together now. Once we've done that, then we'll go up to the top. Now you notice we don't have the top rib and the counterweight skin on. There's one more thing we need to do to that. So right now we're just going to rivet this together. We're going to use the pneumatic squeezer that we've got just for ease. Before we put the 803 on and the counterweight skin, we need to go ahead and drill the holes and dimple the holes for the counterweight itself. Now, the counterweight comes in the kit, and it's these blocks of lead that you saw. There's several of them, they're all the same. You need to put that up into the 803 and drill through the lead into the 803 to make your bolt holes. Now there's a bit of a confusion on the plans that I've run into. On the plans they call for an MS 24694-S58 screw. And if you look on your parts list, there's no such part. If you look at a conversion chart, what that screw is an AN 509 10R16, and you'll find that on your parts list. So you can put one of those in the holes to hold it because the cleco won't reach through. And then go ahead and drill your other hole. Go ahead and take that all apart. Dimple the 803 now. And then once you've got the 803 dimpled, you're ready to put the 803 onto the skeleton.